Welcome to an Eyes on EB exclusive, Stirring the Pot with Rob W. Hello, everybody. We have Lindsay Margossian from East Brunswick TNR Rescue, and we have Brian Hacket. And where are you from exactly?
I'm the Director of Government and Community Relations at Associated Humane Societies based in Newark.
Oh, nice. Okay. So I've seen you at the local town council meeting. Today, we're going to talk about the TNR problem issue we have in East Brunswick and talk a little bit about why we're not taking TNR more seriously in town, where a lot of the local towns, I think you would agree, who are taking it seriously, are having a lot of success with it. Right. So why don't we start with, if you don't mind, first, TNR is for trap, neuter, rescue, correct? And vaccination? Right.
Trap, neuter, vaccinate, return for unowned, free-roaming cats.
Okay, great. And, it's funny. I was telling you a little bit before you came. I didn't know what it was until I met Lindsay, and I had this cat sitting on my deck, relaxing all the time. And I never wanted to go in my backyard because I was scared away. I didn't want to scare the poor thing away. He was just sitting on my chair, getting and then I noticed then after meeting Lindsay, I was like, I noticed his ear was clipped and all that. So someone's feeding him because he's chubby. So one of you guys from your group is doing a good job with him. Anyway, so why don't you tell me a little about some of the challenges that you're having in East Brunswick?
Well, the challenges are much more so coming from the people as opposed to the animals, which is normally the case.
Right.
In this instance with East Brunswick, I have dealt with hundreds of towns around the state. I've probably had thousands of conversations with all sorts of people, elected, unelected, public, private, on all levels of this. And East Brunswick has been one of the most frustrating and challenging towns I think I have ever engaged with. And it's really maddening when you think about how this program that Lindsay and her organization have spearheaded in East Brunswick, and other similar groups are doing this type of thing elsewhere. It's been proven overwhelmingly successful in so many places. And in East Brunswick, I've probably been going back now 5 years. We've been having these conversations with the local officials. And it's just, see this brick wall?
Right.
We might as well just bang our head against it over and over again. It wouldn't make a difference.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be agreement with a lot of people trying to make positive changes in town. Why do you think there's resistance? I mean, have you gotten feedback of why they don't want to, for lack of a better term, bother with it? Or is it lack of education?
Yeah. I mean, we should go down to Six Flags Great Adventure and ride a roller coaster for 5 years, and at least we'd have more fun down at Great Adventure. But it's kind of been like that with East Brunswick. I mean, when Lindsay and I met 4 or 5 years ago, we were having polite, professional dialogue with the local officials, and it was one excuse after another, one goalpost, meet and then move the goalpost after another. I mean, the first thing was, well, the mayor wasn't hearing complaints about cats, so if he wasn't hearing complaints, there must not be a problem. Well, we explained to him that Lindsay was the reason he wasn't hearing complaints,
right,
because she and her organization and her volunteers were handling people's concerns and calls and complaints and doing it at no cost to the township.
Right. And I know there's at times there's some grants available, and are they at least looking into that kind of thing?
No organization will grant money in a town like East Brunswick until they change their policies and approach. And that's what we've been trying to explain. And, just because a town has the right policy and approach doesn't mean they're automatically going to get grant money, but it certainly opens up the potentiality for that to happen.
Right. Do you feel the reason why the lack of response with TNR in East Brunswick is because of financial?
That's another excuse that's being used now at this point in time. But we have explained that they are already spending X amount of dollars on their animal control. This doesn't require them to spend any more money.
Oh, wow.
It's better spending the money they're currently spending. And by the way, this has financial impacts down the line, just a couple years down the line, because when you address these issues at the root cause comprehensively, you save so much money down the line in calls, in complaints, in hoarding cases, in rabies response in cases. So many ways it makes financial sense, which is why hundreds of towns in New Jersey, as well as hundreds nationally. I mean, we're not asking East Brunswick here to do something that's novel or new, or that's been untested. We are literally asking them to simply put in place the wheels in motion to get them out of the 1950s and into the 2024s. That's all we're asking.
For many of us who are just a little familiar with it or not that familiar with it, tell us like the real benefits of it. And even use some of the local New Jersey towns that are doing it. I believe Monroe has something in place, or
a number of towns around, especially those around East Brunswick, Sayreville, Milltown, Old Bridge. Yeah, I mean, we could spend all day listing them, and they have them. And so, the mayor was angry that people not from East Brunswick were at the council meetings asking for this. And I said, well, the reason they are at your council meeting is because you not addressing this issue the right way is causing problems in other towns who are actually doing the progressive, the positive, and the intelligent thing in the approach here. So to your question, the old way was you round up all the animals and you kill them.
Okay.
That was the old way of doing it. That's completely ethically, morally, and financially unacceptable. So that's no longer done.
Of course.
So the only other option is really doing this TNVR program, because what it does, there are millions of cats outside in our communities. Many people don't realize they're there because they hide, they sleep during the day, whatever the case. But they are not being properly managed in a town like East Brunswick. They are unowned, they are unsocialized, they are many times unmanaged without this type of program. So you can't adopt these cats through a shelter. You can't just round them up and kill them. I mean, even if you wanted to do that, even if they were still going to do that, it never works.
Right.
It doesn't work. That's why we're still having this conversation. So TNVR is the only approach where you manage these cats humanely, you vaccinate them so they're not a threat for rabies, you sterilize them so they're not reproducing. Cat reproduction is prolific. I mean, 12 cats now could turn into hundreds in just 2 years.
That's amazing. That's crazy to even think about.
Yes, it's unbelievable. So that's why when you nip these problems in the bud now, when you manage these colonies appropriately, you manage the existing ones there, you prevent future litters from happening, you vaccinate to make sure everybody's protected against rabies, and over time, the problem literally dies off.
It's like anything else in life. You got to get to the root causes.
Correct.
Yeah, you can't just treat the symptoms. You got to get to the root causes, and eventually it'll get to a level where it's no longer
correct,
dangerous or a problem.
Correct.
And East Brunswick just had a terrible tough hoarding situation.
Yes, and Lindsay's helped with these cases. She's responded to these cases. But there's only so much a nonprofit can do.
Of course.
And it's getting to the point where nonprofits like ours who step in because we want to help the person involved, we want to help people, we're only enabling the township to continue to not do its obligation and its responsibilities in these situations. So hoarding cases, you often have mental health issues, you have other public health issues going on with these situations, and someone who's well-meaning sees some cats out there, they want to care for the cats, so they take them in, but they're not provided any resources to sterilize the cats or any. So now again, 3 or 4 cats now that end up in a hoarder's home turns into hundreds a year or two later. And there are multiple active hoarding situations in East Brunswick as we are sitting here speaking, with hundreds of animals.
That's
hundreds that could have been only 5 or 6 or 10 had they worked with us years ago to properly have a response to these issues.
Now in East Brunswick, I mean, for the most part, besides a few knuckleheads here and there, I mean, it seems to me that most people are supportive, that the residents are supportive of some type of TNR program. Do you guys find that?
Everyone is supportive of TNVR.
Yeah, that's what I get to.
When you actually understand how commonsensical and how practical and how reasonable and how successful the approach has been over the towns and the time that has been used, then everybody's on board. The only time you get some people concerned is people who don't understand the rabies aspect, who think that, oh, well, I'm worried about cats and cats biting people. Well, first of all, feral cats are afraid of people. So if they're truly feral, they don't come up to anybody. Right. So they're not a threat.
Yeah.
But then if they're vaccinated, they're actually totally not a threat to wildlife or anybody. So it's getting through the misconceptions. And even, we hear opposition from bird folks, people who love birds because cats predate on birds.
Right.
Well, when TNVR is supposed to reduce and eliminate those cats effectively and humanely, then that's less cats predating on birds. So the more that people understand the real nuances of the policy, everyone supports it.
Right. Yeah. That's I talked to Lindsay before. There's one of the things I was trying to help you guys with is just to get support. I believe there's just needs to be a lot of education, right? I mean, just throughout the community, the more education, the better. Because I didn't understand it at all. I just wanted to pet the cat in my backyard and kept running away from me. But,
well, education and awareness is a big part in terms of the everyday public. Understanding, if a cat is going to be fed, it needs to be fed in conjunction with a program like Lindsay's organization, so the cat is being managed and they're not reproducing, right? I have done 1/10 of the level of education with other local officials in other towns and gotten 100% more in this area relative to East Brunswick. We have done so many meetings, so many conversations, so much education on the local level with the public officials. Everyone's bought in except them.
Yeah. You know what's interesting about a lot of people? They're all about the data, right? Data. Oh, the data doesn't support that so low. But when you have, for some things, you have the data and they're completely ignored, the actual data. And these are data type people.
Look, I mean, I respect the interest in wanting qualitative and quantitative data to support this. And that can always be supplied. And there is tons of that from other cities and states that have done this. So unfortunately, in East Brunswick's example, data just equaled delay. Data was another ploy to continue to delay what we see as the inevitable, which is this has to get done. Right. Simply has, and there's a tremendous amount of support for it. So it's not going to cost them any extra money. So I mean, we have addressed every single hurdle and roadblock and complaint and concern. And now the most recent one was, well, get us a ton of data. Well, the problem isn't when we have a program, you're going to get data. Right. There is no program in East Brunswick other than people like Lindsay and other, good Samaritans doing their own thing. So it's almost like we're being asked to be set up to fail here.
Right.
Like we can show you all the data and all the proof and everywhere else where it's worked, which we've done. Well, that's not good enough. So now they want data specifically for East Brunswick.
Which you can't do.
Well, I mean, we've given some data.
Right.
But now I suspect it's going to be, there's not enough data here to show we need it or we should have it. It's just the hurdles and the goalposts just keep getting moved. And it's funny, I spoke with several political consultant friends of mine because I lobby, I'm in public policy, so I know a lot of folks who do deal with government. And every time I've talked to them about East Brunswick, the first thing, as soon as I said data, they go, data means delay. data means delay. And I go, yeah, you might as well tell me the sky is blue. I know that.
Yeah, unless it's a hockey rink or something.
Right.
Yeah. What would you say would be a good call to action as far as mobilizing more people, or you think that'll help, or you think it'll just be more delays and they'll ignore it like they've done?
Well, I would always encourage residents to participate in the process. Attend town council meetings, email the council your concerns, all of these things. Always participate in the process. That can never hurt. At this point, how much it will help, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because we have basically used every tool in the toolbox, and we've done everything that has brought about favorable outcomes in other places, but East Brunswick is this brick wall here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're pursuing, some other thoughts and some other strategies, but anytime a resident has a concern or an issue, call town hall and ask to speak with the business administrator, and email the township council and let them know that we continue to have these issues, whether it be rabies cases. I think there have been 6 in East Brunswick far this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's happening because cats aren't being vaccinated. And, cats aren't a rabies vector species, but it impacts, raccoons and foxes and whatever else that are out there. The more of these cats that get vaccinated, the better that's going to be addressed. So anytime there's a concern about stray cats, rabid animals, hoarding cases, anything, people need to call the town and ask for an appropriate response, because, nonprofits just trying to help are not a comprehensive way to address the problem.
Right, because that's what's happening now. When somebody has a problem, like you said earlier, they're contacting Lindsay, or they're contacting on the Facebook groups, and then Lindsay's right there within 30 seconds. And then the town doesn't have to deal with it. So it's basically sounds like out of sight, out of mind, and it's not our problem.
Yeah, and I get that, there's a lot on their plate. I mean, I used to be a local council person. I mean, I understand what goes into running a town. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that they're not busy or there's not other, concerns to address. I respect what they're doing and all that they have to address. But we're going on 5 years now, right, where, I mean, any more delays and any more excuses is really inexcusable.
And they have the experts, you guys, to help them with it. So it's not like they have to kind of learn a whole new product. They have somebody that can give them the information, what needs to be done. And so it really doesn't make any sense why they won't kind of get on board.
I found shocking in the last meeting we had with the mayor, he made this insinuation and this statement like we were nonprofits just looking for special treatment from the town, and other nonprofits don't expect special treatment. Well, first of all, we're not looking for special treatment or a special status. But when you have nonprofits who are at their own cost and energy bailing the town out of having to address its own problems that are really the town's responsibility, the least the town can do in return is update its local policies and ordinances to make it easier for nonprofits to continue to spend their money on the town.
Right.
You see, just like we're not asking for much here.
Right. And also it's you're a nonprofit that's actually helping the town specifically. You're helping the town and the community.
And what's amazing is that, my organization, we engage in municipal contracts for animal control. We don't even service East Brunswick. But when I reviewed the animal services contracts that the township of East Brunswick has, I was floored. I could not believe that these contracts were even in effectuation, let alone even were considered in the first place. And so it's really doing a disservice to the residents and the animals having these contracts structured the way they are. So then my organization, which is contracted with neighboring towns who are doing the right thing, it's impacting us. It's impacting residents in other towns when they're not doing the right thing.
Yeah, and I think one of the interesting things about East Brunswick, as far as like elections go, especially with on the mayor's side of it, there's really no challengers, so they don't often have to go out of the way with things that might not get them the last few hundred votes to win. Right. And I think that's kind of one of the issues with a lot of topics. But I know a lot of people who support the mayor also support TNR. So I think it would be, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, to get those people mobilized.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, we've met many people who say, I campaigned for the mayor. I voted for the mayor. I support the mayor. This is ludicrous. He's not going forward with this. I mean, this isn't about politics. It's about policy and common sense. And when you have good policy, it means good politics, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Because rather than have 25 residents and 20 or 30 other non-residents at a council meeting all clamoring for this, if they just would do this simple policy change, they would have 50 people at a meeting applauding them and complimenting them and writing LTEs. And I mean, this is like common sense.
I agree 100%. If they had if he made a TNR program happen, he would be a local hero.
Look at the, for a lot of people. You know what? Look at the publicity that Steve Fulop is getting in Jersey City right now. I just had an article sent to me Friday morning, a couple days ago. The city of Jersey City, their animal services division is partnering with a community nonprofit in Jersey City. They've got a $90,000 grant to partner to help humanely manage the cats in Jersey City.
That's amazing.
So this is New Jersey's second largest city.
Right.
Getting $90,000, their animal control division, all of them partnering on this. They've gotten great press. They've gotten the money. Why can't East Brunswick do that?
I have no idea. I know that was a rhetorical question.
And again, this is not rocket science. It's not brain surgery. It's not anything novel or new. It's barely controversial. This is something that they don't need to spend any extra money than they're already spending. You simply update the policies and the ordinances to empower residents to do the right thing. Because right now, all they have is essentially a feeding ban. And when the cats are not there because of the food.
Right.
The food is there because the cats are there. Cool. So you just don't have a feeding ban and think you're going to solve the problem. You need to let people know that the cats are being managed. And when they're being managed properly, you're not going to have indiscriminate feeding that's contributing to other problems.
Didn't an 80-year-old woman get fined for feeding cats in East Brunswick? Is that true?
Yeah. It's so ludicrous. Like, you're going to find a good Samaritan that is making sure cats don't starve to death because they're not being properly managed by the township. You're going to find her instead of pass an ordinance that empowers organizations like Lindsay's to help that woman to fix those animals and vaccinate those animals. It's totally backwards. It's totally backwards.
So if you don't mind, the whole with that 80-year-old woman who's trying to do some kindness that got fined, I would like to go back to that a little bit. So after all that happened, did they help her with any solutions, or what happened with that situation in general?
So that situation should be a textbook example of what you don't do as a municipality when addressing that type of situation. So let's just back up for one moment and just lay the context. Hurricane Katrina was a natural disaster of epic proportions that our country saw. And one of the horrible, just heart-wrenching things about Hurricane Katrina that many people remember from looking at videos and news reports from that was people refused to evacuate because they did not want to leave their pet behind.
Right, I remember. Yeah.
Now, these types of situations, and we had it with Hurricane Sandy in New Jersey as well. This is why laws have been changed to allow animals on public transit during natural, declared emergencies and things like that. So a survey was done related to this after Hurricane Katrina. Over 50% of the people polled said they would rather stay back and die than leave their animal alone in the home and evacuate with the animal. So if you have surveys that show people are so dedicated to the welfare of their own pets and animals in general that they would put their lives on the line to not evacuate without them, what does that tell you about an average resident in your town who is a compassionate Good Samaritan, who sees an animal, in this case a cat? So this 70, 80-year-old woman sees a cat hungry for food, unowned. Maybe the cat was abandoned by someone, so the township should do something about the illegal abandonment happening, but they're not. But whatever the circumstances were, this cat is there out of no fault of its own. And now you have a Good Samaritan, in this case an elderly resident, who I believe one of these residents, there's several examples, but one of them is an elderly veteran, military veteran, who now is doing a good thing to say, I'm going to feed this cat, but they don't have the resources or education to say, I need to feed this cat, but I need to do it in conjunction with the proper process, making sure the cat is vaccinated and sterilized. So it's part of a program and approach, right? Well, all East Brunswick did was swoop in, give her a ticket, slap her on it, and okay. So now what result did that have? Now you penalized a Good Samaritan for doing something that was positively intended for the community. You drove this person underground because now this person is not going to stop caring for the cats.
Right.
Okay. We just heard that people were willing to die.
Of course, yeah.
So this woman is not going to stop caring for cats because she got slapped with a ticket. So now you drove this person underground. Now she's brought cats inside without any access to resources because the town scared her and penalized her and went after her in a regressive, non-holistic way. And now that problem has ballooned into a massive, and this happens all the time, massive hoarding situation. So had there been a comprehensive, holistic, progressive approach that we advised on, that we could assist with, bringing the stakeholders together, which is, let's not forget, it's the Department of Health, it's animal control, it's the animal shelter, it's community nonprofits, and it's residents. Those are stakeholders that should be part of a holistic, comprehensive approach. It's been done in many other places. There's no reason it cannot be done and should not be done in East Brunswick. East Brunswick has a hell of a lot more access to those stakeholders and resources than many other places do that are doing it. So there really is no viable excuse or explanation that's rational to me why it's not happening. And again, this can get turned on its face in a short matter of time. I now live in Burlington County, which Burlington County is like Middlesex County. It has very densely populated parts and it has very rural and farmy parts, right? And our county as a whole, we used to euthanize over 1,000 cats a year in the county shelter. And these were mainly feral cats, community cats that were unowned. And now that there has been a TNVR program implemented almost countywide, there's still a few towns that are problematic, but by and large, it's been countywide. We've worked with the nonprofit group in the county. We've worked with the county commissioners. We've worked with the county shelter. That number's gone down from over 1,000 to under 200 in just 4 years. So in just 4 years, there was a precipitous decline in complaints, in concerns, in cats being born.
And that pays for itself.
In fact, in rabies cases. And exactly, it pays for itself over time.
That's what matters a lot.
What the county did and what many towns did is the opposite of what East Brunswick is doing, which is they updated their policies to reflect the 2020s instead of the 1920s. And they empowered community groups to continue to spend their own money to help the local and county government address the problem.
Yeah, it's interesting what East Brunswick is, because East Brunswick, for the most part, the residents are they're progressive by nature, right? And politically. And this is such a progressive topic that it's strange that it's not embraced by the town officials.
Yeah, I know East Brunswick pretty well. I mean, my parents, my mother grew up in East Brunswick. My uncle grew up in East Brunswick. My grandmother lived and with her rescue animals on the President streets for decades. Mm-hmm. I've been around East Brunswick and in East Brunswick many years, over the years. I know the town pretty well. Even though I'm not a resident, you know,
you have a connection.
You know, so, just because someone's not a resident doesn't mean they can't speak up, especially when it's something like this. And, you know, I work on these issues all around the state in both a personal and a professional capacity. And again, if Newark is looking into doing this, if Jersey City is doing it, if the towns around East Brunswick are doing it, if rural places like Burlington County are doing it, this is happening all over the place. And the last meeting we had with Council Vice President Zambicki and the mayor, they wanted data, and it was just more delays and more delays. And I could understand it if we were asking them for money for a novel program that's never been done before.
Right.
But here's the difference. We weren't asking for any money. The ordinance we proposed costs no extra money. What they are already spending on animal control, they are required to have by the state mandates. So nothing changes other than updating policies that empower groups to continue to spend their own money. And it encourages a holistic, comprehensive approach. So we're not just ticketing 80-year-old ladies.
Right. That's embarrassing.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's so what can the community do more? Like you said, go to town council every time that there is a stray cat issue, to make sure you contact the town, not just talk about it on the forums or contacting EB TNR. But other than that, it's really just keep pressuring, would you say, to get things.
The most important thing is residents and people need to understand that these issues come down to a municipal responsibility. Mm-hmm. Every town in the state of New Jersey is required to have an animal control officer and an animal impoundment facility. Those facilities and those entities are supposed to collaborate and work with residents and other stakeholders like nonprofits to address these issues in a way that ensures public health, protects animal welfare, and services the community. I mean, these are all intricately connected. So if residents have concerns about cats, stray animals at large, rabies concerns, any of these issues, they have to call the township, report it to animal control, ask the business administrator to address it with a comprehensive approach. They have the proposed ordinance. They have the resources available. Just a matter of unlocking it. Because right now there are so many hoarding cases and situations going on in the township that I have advised community stakeholders that they need to wait to be involved until the township does its responsibility. Because as long as the township is not doing its responsibility and nonprofits are stepping in first and foremost, this is going to continue to be a broken system that isn't addressed in a comprehensive way, because municipal government can shirk its responsibility by just relying on the nonprofits to bail them out. And that's not how it's supposed to work. In the towns that we service and we work with, if a hoarding case was reported to us, the first thing we would do is work with animal control, our sheltering staff, and the local Department of Health and other relevant officials to say, let's make an assessment, let's respond, let's address the situation and create a plan. Okay. We don't expect the town to do everything.
Mm-hmm.
We don't expect the animal shelter to do everything. We don't expect Lindsay's group to do everything. That's not how it's supposed to work. The burden shouldn't fall all on one entity. But right now, the burden is falling all on one entity, and everyone is being harmed because of it.
So if the township, let's just say miraculously, finally agreed to something like this, how long would the whole process take?
This could literally, in governmental terms, happen overnight, almost. What's a lot of frustration and negativity now could be washed away in the matter of 2 council meetings. The ordinance has been proposed, which is the template ordinance that hundreds of other local officials have already vetted and attorneys have looked at, and cities have passed, from Miami-Dade County to Chicago to, Austin, Texas, and Washington, D.C., all the way to Jersey City and small in between, everywhere all over the place. So 2 council meetings, they pass the community cat ordinance, they update the municipal policies, which cost them nothing, and organizations like Lindsay's, mine, advocates, everyone who came to all those council meetings, we would literally have hundreds of people and dozens of organizations sending out memos, emails, social media posts, press releases, singing the mayor's praises and complimenting and applauding East Brunswick. It's so easy to do. And we're all there ready to applaud the town and support the town in a positive and productive way. All they need to do is pass the ordinance.
No, and it's well needed. I really appreciate both of you. I always appreciate what you're doing, Lindsay. And I appreciate you guys coming on the podcast, teaching us what's going on with TNR. And we'll talk afterwards. I have some ideas where I can kind of help you guys out.
We continue to advocate, and residents call Lindsay all day, every day.
Yeah.
And she continues to tell them, the problem is, we've proposed the solution. We don't have the power to pass it. Go contact the people who have the power to pass it. And until that happens, we'll continue to do our best.
Yep, and I'll help you keep putting pressure on them so something happens.
Thank you. It's a win-win-win for everyone.
Absolutely. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Appreciate it.
Thank you.